Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you very much for joining us, Dub TV program. Today, we are discussing highly critical issues that are happening in Ethiopia today. I have my partners with me, Mr. Hamid Yassin, Mr. Atanafu. Good day, gentlemen. How are you?
Good.
Well, we're fine.
Uh,
Glad I'm fine. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, absolutely. So, just to give a quick run through, the Ethiopian government has declared a 6 month state of emergency in the Amhara region. The state of emergency gives the government powers, martial law powers, to set up curfews, restrict movement, ban gatherings, and we'll discuss that. This comes days after the clashes between the federal government, the local Fano militiamen, and our reporting from our sources indicate that Fano has refused to lay down arms that the federal government has demanded, and as such has taken over vast lands or vast areas within the Amhara region. Acting on this heightened emergency, we also hear that the internet has been cut in major cities such as Bahir Dar and Gondor. So with us today again are my partners Hamid Yassin and Mr. Atnafu to shed some light, help us understand what is going on in Ethiopia, particularly in the Amhara region. Why is the government fighting its people? It seems that the conflicts have been building and tension is again boiling over. So my first question is to Mr. Atnafu. Can you give us a general overview, and you can be detailed really, what's going on in Ethiopia today, particularly in the Amhara region?
Thank you, Brother Guled. Yeah, I'll try to be as brief as possible.
Sure.
Now, as we speak, the Amhara region, regional state is under fight between the government and the people. I could say that. It's very unrealistic when one said that there is one particular armed group trying to fight with the government, with the federal government and the local government at the same time. That's not the case. The case is it's a popular movement going on in Amhara region now. That popular movement, there are different groups are involved. Fano is one. The Amhara Popular Front forces are the others. But the purpose and the goal is one. That's to save Amharas from being just prosecuted, killed. And Amhara said this is enough. They have been very tolerant so far. As you know, that during the last 30 years, Amhara has been targeted by the ruling party and different groups. They were displaced from the areas they live in. Their constitutional rights were violated in every place they live in. And now even they are unable to travel to their own capital city, Addis Ababa. You will be profiled if you are Amhara, and either you will be kidnapped or killed or taken to unspecified places, or you will be asked to pay ransom for your hostage. So we are at this stage. So the Amhara people demanded it is legitimate rights to live, to exist as citizens of Ethiopia for many years, and they tried to do it peacefully. They demanded their questions for the last 5 years since this what we call change came into being after Dr. Abiy came to the head of states, or PP came into power the last 2 years. Things became worse than even we experienced it before. So this is a popular movement. It's a people's movement to assert the right to exist. So that's what's going on. And now most of the bigger Amhara cities are under control of this popular front. As we speak now in Bahir Dar, which is the capital city of the region, there is a fight going on between the defense forces and the Popular Front. And in North Shoa, which is again one of the major cities, which is Dabra Berhan, there is a fight going on. And in Bahar Dar, most of the police stations, which was controlled by the local PP, now are under control of these local fronts. So this is not something that a certain group of people armed and try to overthrow the government. That's not the issue. The issue is they demanded their right to exist peacefully, and nobody listened to them. Now they are trying to assert their existence. This is what's going on. Now, following this, as you said it rightly, the federal government declared state of emergency, I think 2 days ago. And that state of, in the name of the state of emergency now, they are rounding up Amharas, not only in Amhara region, in Addis Ababa, in Oromia of major cities now. If you are Amhara, you will be targeted. You will be asked your ID, if you have Amhara name, and you like it to survive. They'll send you to concentration camps, unspecified concentration camps, and especially if you are youth. It doesn't matter whether you are a scholar or a business person or a parliament member, for that matter. One of the parliament members, very, very prominent guy, who represented Abin and was very outspoken guy in the parliament. You know him, Mr. Christian Tadela. He was he was beaten up in front of his wife and his kids and arrested. You know that the members of the parliaments have immunity not to be.
No, arrested. we will Atnafu, we will get into the pressures on the politicians and the politics and the parliament. But the security situation, you gave us a very thorough overview. I'm gonna come back to you, Yassine. You know, as an activist who was active within the Somali region community, it dawned on me as Mr. Atnafu was giving us a background of what's going on. The random arrests, the random arrests of politicians. People are fighting or demanding for their existence. It seemed very much from notes that you used to read from 20 years ago. And I think that this experience, it seems like the wheel is the target is somebody else, but the feeling is the same. The understanding is going to be the same. Can you give us an idea of why are we here today?
Yes. By the way, it's very sad to hear a member of parliament is in jail and has been beaten up in front of his family. If this accusation is true, we are seriously concerned, and parliament members have an immunity, and we have to respect the rule of law. And Ethiopian Human Rights Committee has to investigate this as soon as possible and put a report on it. Having said that, yes, the reminiscence of what was happening in the Somali region and what's happening in the Amhara region, it's a parallel. You can say it. What have we learned and what we have seen it? What we have learned is clear. Government cannot suppress the feelings of the people, period. This will continue if there is no viable political solution. Well, from what I'm hearing, my friend Atnafu, who I've been working with over right now 10 years, and both of us having a gray hair right now, and and this struggle, and Gulet, yourself as well, we've been knocking the members of parliament and Congress's doors, collectively organizing demonstrations, and all we want is peace and stability in Ethiopia and the regions that we are from. Why we're here? We're here because a lack of political will to solve the problem in Ethiopia, period. We are here, Gulet, because the national reconciliation did not do their job. We're here because we want to war that we were against the Tigray War. We were against from the beginning. We wanted peace, the national dialogue to take place in Ethiopia and find peace lasting peace in Ethiopia. We're here because there's a lot of grievance in the constitution for the from Amhara region's perspective. The Amharas were demanding a lot of things, and whether it's land, because one of the biggest reason that we are here is because of the Tigray War. Let me be blunt about it. The Fano was created or was has been established well during the Tigray War.
We will get into the history and the structure of Fano. I think what I just stay with that part where you're saying why we are here today,
Okay,
with
that's fair
respect
enough, because
to the conflict. Yeah,
that's where I
yeah.
want to connect to the late. So
Okay.
we're here because the war that happened in Tigray create and armed the Fano militia, where Atnafu right now called the Popular Front. So that because of that, when the government say that you need to disarm, and when the government say that there won't be any Liu police, the Amharas saw that it's a basically threat to them. They saying that on the other hand, in Oromia side, the Oromos are being armed. They are part of the military where the Amhara has been disarmed. Then the issue of Addis Ababa came in. Then the issue of came what you would call the Constitution, the Article 39, the review of the Constitution, where the Amhara has always had a concern, the biggest vocal opposition of that article,
Hmm.
because they always, Amharas think they're the vanguard of Ethiopia, making sure that Ethiopia stays together. But where the misunderstanding is happening because of lack of political will, that we kind of have a dialogue, and every
Hmm.
region can establish its own autonomies. Most of all, when the PP is being created and the PP become a centralized party, the Amharas are arguing that they not even are in charge on their day-to-day operations. So those factors and those grievances, when you put it up together, it can easily be weaponized, and that's
Okay, very good. So what you're saying is frustrations are boiling over. If I can bring it back to Atanafu, the same question. Yassine gave an overview in the sense that political frustrations are now over boiling. That the actual dialogues have never happened. We're going to get into the government's perspective in a minute, but if I can get back to Atanafu, why are we here? What is going on? What is the reason for now this full blown conflict that's going on in all over the Amhara region? What's the reason?
Well, I agree on the my brother Yassin's assessment of the situation. Everything is starting or coming from the side of the government and the ruling party, whether it is Amhara, Somali, Oromo, or anything. Yes, it is lack of political will and commitment. And if you see the constitution that they are bragging, there are a lot of good things in this constitution. More than 32 articles about human rights and democratic rights and civil rights. These are the universally accepted covenants of the international human rights and civil rights. It's incorporated here. It gives the right of freedom, liberty, everything is here. But the problem is the ruling party and the government couldn't enforce its own constitution. Who is above law? Who is above the constitution now? It's not the popular
Hmm.
front. It's not people who are fighting for their freedom. It is the government who is violating and not
Hmm.
enforcing its own constitution. They couldn't
Hmm.
lead. They couldn't lead. And if you see Article 55 of
Yeah.
this constitution, it gives the prime minister is appointed from the majority of the ruling party by the parliament. The parliament is, House of Representatives is the highest authority by this constitution.
Sure.
But imagine the highest members of the highest authority which appointed the prime minister, the executive branch. They are being arrested, even violating their rights, their constitutional rights. And who violated the constitution? Is the government. So why Amhara is in this situation now is they are sick of being killed. One city, Ataya city in North Shore region, was burned down more than 10 times. Burn it down, rebuild it, burn it down, rebuild it, burn it down. Repeatedly from people from Oromia, supported not by Ola, mostly by the PP members of the Oromia government. It's government's inflicted wound and problem. So you cannot travel. You cannot exercise your rights for liberty. You cannot protest. You cannot write. But all these rights are here in the constitution. Who violated those rights is the government. And whatever happened.
So let me ask you a question that builds right on. Oh, sorry. Let me ask you a question. You can go right to the Constitution and the rule of law. We see that and there are other questions some of our viewers are writing, and I have some questions being sent to me. So we see. I'm going to go back to Atnafu, then to you, Yasin. We see the Major Daoud, I think is his name, the leader or the spokesman for the Amhara Popular Front, or maybe Fano. He said their aim of Fano is to take over all the way up to Addis Ababa, all the way up to the capital city. Now, so the question then becomes, is there friction purely, hey, I am out of politics, I need to be in charge? Or is it, as you are saying, our rights are being abused? Or is it somewhere in the middle? The question is, what is the perspective of Fano, for one? Where are they going? And secondly, is that perspective shared by the Amhara community in total? That's enough.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, I came across these questions from different friends, and I heard it from the media also. People are talking about it. Major Daoud is a prominent politician who has been to be played in a ministerial role as the governor of Eritrea during Derg time, and he's a very prominent guy. He fought for his country. We are in the same institution, which is Harar Military Academy. During his time was Haile Selassie Academy, whom he graduated. Yes, I respected him very much. But regarding this specific thing, I heard what he said. And I don't buy it, honestly, at Nafu. And I have been in this struggle, and I had contacts with different people who are fighting for their rights for long, knowing the of Amhara's, their perspective is not to fight all the way from Amhara and come to Arad Kilo, which is where the palace is, overthrow and just establish a government by its own. No, if when we this type, number one, Mr. Daoud is here, like us. He lives in America, and as far as I know, he was appointed by the Amhara Popular Front leader, one of the leaders, I could say, to organize support from the diaspora. I haven't heard that he's a spokesperson for that group. I don't think he's a spokesperson.
Okay. So let me refine the question so we can move it to the next thing. And Yasin, I'm sorry to come back to you. It just dawned on me.
No.
Well, I want to take advantage of your knowledge and brain, Mr. Atnafu. So what you're saying is, one, what he has said is on the extreme side. but the overall demands of the Amhara community, region-wide and community, both in diaspora, is it in line with what he was saying, or is he on the extreme side? And then Yassine, I'm going to ask if you can go into the same answer as well.
No, I don't believe it is in line with the objective and goal of the Amhara movement. That I know.
Okay.
Because
what he said is not in line with the Amhara movement or within the Amhara community.
Amhara had a legitimate questions, and
Sure.
leaders believe, and Amhara movement participants believe that there must be a change of government. The PP, the Prosperity Party, and the government lead, as I said it before. So, sustainable peace, this government has to go. They believe in that. And the regional government has to go. They lost legitimacy. They couldn't lead. So that's their right to demand that. But the ultimate responsibility of getting rid of the federal government is not only Amhara, is Ethiopian people, stakeholders from different groups. And it's not one group of people, whether be it Amhara or Oromo, that's going to lead us to a vicious circle of war. And it's not going to bring sustainable peace. We need a sustainable peace. We need to respect each other. We have to have our own government, and we have to come to the national dialogue. And
fantastic. So I'm going to come back to you again, because the national dialogue is our political section. We'll come to that in a minute on the solutions. Yassine, if you can take the same thing, what the major said, is it in line with your understanding of the broader Amhara community? And I guess if I can add to, do you think this brewing conflict that is now all over the Amhara region, one, will it spill over to the rest of Ethiopia? And two, will it lead to a destabilized country? So if you can take those three things together.
I will. Thank you. First of all, Major Daud, and as Atnafu said, that he's a well-prominent Ethiopian politician who is part of the Amhara Popular Front. And Amhara Popular Front need to make a statement if that view is their view. Iskender Nega, who is the leader of the Amhara Popular Front, and their organization need to clarify this. If they don't, then we're going to assume that's their position, and now they are trying to and the Amhara Popular Front and Fano are working together. Fano fighters, so which means then it'll become the message and their aim, what they need to do. That's what they want to do. I understand what Atnafu said, that's not what people on the ground are saying it, and that's not what the elites are saying it, but this is a French part of the movement. So that I'll leave there. So until we hear otherwise, we have people from I've been receiving phone calls from the Oromia side, from the Amhara side, from the Oromo side, Somali side, everywhere. Even the government representative, their argument that's what the Amharas want. That's what I'm hearing. So this needs to be clarified. But it's a major concern if that's what he said it, and that's the point that he's standing for. Sure. Well, some of the comments are saying I'm no expert, and I'm always learning about political conflicts around the world and everywhere else.
Will this destabilize Ethiopia? Will this destabilize Ethiopia and spill over?
Absolutely. This already have stabilized Ethiopia, so let's not be fool about it. The Amhara region is the major basket of the Ethiopian economy, whether it is industrial, whether it is production of food, and then not only that, there is no internet right now as we speak. Nothing is basically the whole region is non-functional. The international community are leaving. the Amhara region I'm talking about. There's a worrisome thing. The IMF and the World Bank is worried about how they're going to fund if the money that they are loan that they're giving is being funded to this war. So this is a crucial point in terms of where Ethiopian politics is going to go.
Okay.
So yes, it's gonna stabilize already. It will stabilize in the future. The
Mhm.
farmers are not farming right now. The production
Mhm.
of the farming for next season, it will be bad. So I don't see easy way out other than a dialogue. So that's where I'm gonna leave, Gule.
Okay, very good. So I'm going to come back to you, and then Atnafu, you'll take that same question. As Mr. Atnafu mentioned earlier, and we've seen in some reporting, the government has been blamed also in arresting people, in setting hard curfews, in people dying. So, what is the government's perspective? Why is the government being so heavy-handed with its own citizens? Can you explain, and then we'll go to Mr. Atnaf.
Uh, the government's up against the wall, pretty much, and they have to, from African government's perspectives, always the rule of law must be respected. The law is
Sure.
above everything, and
Right.
that is what's there. So, but who's respecting the rule of law and who's breaking the rule of law is what always been questioned during the let's put shelf a little bit the Amhara region, what's happening, and just go back 2 years ago when the war in Tigray was happening. What exactly the government did, what worked for them, what strategy that they use. That's exactly the playbook they're using with a new ounces. Right now, for
Mm.
example, the head of the intelligence in the Amhara region is Amhara person. The person who's leading the military is an Amhara person. Anybody who's speaking about the Amhara region is an Amhara person. So they using that strategy of the Amharas fighting with Amharas, and where
Right.
the
So what you're saying is the government's perspective is an African government wants to make sure they maintain control, but they're giving it an Amhara face. Is that what you're saying?
yes, on top of that, not only they giving the Amhara face, then what I'm worried about as an activist, as a human rights activist, and somebody who cares about individual rights and stability of Ethiopia in large, is wherever the Fano took right now and captured, when the government comes back, what will happen to the people? Okay, can Fano control that area? And how long will it take? What kind of humanitarian crisis will happen? If this war drags, can Ethiopian government survive in terms of, and if the Ethiopian, and this is if the Ethiopian government collapses, can can there be a peace? Will there be a genocide? Will there be Amhara fighting Oromo, Amhara fighting Tigray, Tigray fighting Amhara, Oromo fighting Somali
And
after that?
that's the spillover effect. We'll go to Mr. Atnafu. But you
Yeah.
want if you have a point to finish?
No,
Sorry.
no, I'm done.
And
So
then we'll
that's
give
what I'm
Atnafu
worried
10
about,
minutes.
and that's what we need to find a solution for it. Go for it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Atnafu, take the same point, but if you can educate us on the government's perspective and why do they feel that they have to be so heavy-handed, and then certainly discuss the greater impact that this has on Ethiopia, the stability and the spillover effects. So if you can take all that together, and you can have up to 5 to 6 minutes, please welcome.
Yeah, thank you again for this important question. Well, why the government is doing or why they are heavy-handed? Yeah, Yasin mentioned the Tigray War, which was started November 2020. That war cost more than 1 million people's lives. Probably more than 200 people of defense forces were killed. On the Tigrayan side, probably more than 600,000 people, including civilians, were dead. I have a friend which happened to be working together years ago, and I met him in Starbucks these days after many years that we never met, and asked him how he's from Adwa of Tigray. How are you? How is your family? How did they come across this fight? He told me 100 people, 100 of his relatives are killed. That's one family. That's how the war in Tigray was horrible. And there was no accountability on both the TPLF side and the government side, why they did this, why all these people were killed, why civilians were massacred, why all this economy was destroyed. The Prime Minister himself declared in the parliament that Mekelle, the capital city of Tigray, is now as small as Bashasha, which he was born in Jimma area. He was bragging.
Sure.
It was a good job for him to make Mekelle, which was very industrial city, which has many universities, factories, probably a lot of next to Addis Ababa, was destroyed. So the agenda is not to talk about the Tigray, but I was opposing that war. Yassin and Guled were opposing that. We were trying to educate people that this is all power struggle. But after all those things, now they came to a peaceful agreement. Also, it's not sustainable yet. If the Tigray war costs you like that, Amhara is much larger than Tigray in terms of population, in terms of geographical territory, demography. Amhara is the second, probably, if the right census is already done, most Amhara people think that they are the majority, not the Oromos. Because it was intentionally, deliberately undercounted during the EPRDF time. But let's assume that it is the second largest ethnic group. Let's accept what their last time that we had census was in 2007. We never had any census after that. And there was silent genocide going on in Amhara region. The population was decreasing from year to year. Okay? The only region, if you see their statistical data, that was decreasing in terms of manpower number is Amhara region only.
So can you go into the risk of further destabilization?
Yeah, I'm coming to us. So these large people, economically also, in terms of agriculture, especially agricultural goods, Gojam, part of Shoa, Wollo, Gondar, they produce export travel items and food items for the rest of the country. If you put that area in war for 1 year, the spillover effects to other regions, including Tigray, including the Tigrayan people, is going to be disastrous. The Tigrayans are still starving, even after the war is over now, even now, because the borders are not fully open. That's access to Amhara region. It's not fully open yet. The only assistance that you can send is through the Afar region now, peacefully. So we thought that this will be changed. Now, Amhara itself now is going to be in problem because they're under the war. They didn't provide them fertilizers and seeds to the farmers. Now you see in Amhara region, this popular activity front has a support of farmers. Farmers don't very much clue about what's going on in terms of politics, but they see that there are disadvantages. They see that the government is telling them. Now they support any movement that can challenge the government. So that's why.
No, very good. So go ahead. Sorry, finish the point. Finish the point.
That's why whatever you do, using the heavy hand, using force, you cannot crush this type of movement. It's all over the places. It's all over. Go to the small cities, go to the farming areas. My father there. I call and ask people what's going on. Everywhere there is a movement. If that's the case, the only solution is come to the table, as Yasin said, have a negotiated agreement.
Okay, so I'll come to you, Yasin, in a minute. So let me ask you a question.
Can I piggyback on one thing that I just want to make sure that the people understand?
Sure.
The Amhara,
Sure.
not only the effect is going to have economically, in terms of remittance, they are the largest remittance senders in Ethiopia. From
Yes,
the what we have, the records that we have from 1 billion to 4 billion US dollar a year. That's what we are talking about. So that's a huge number, and now they can't even send that. The people, there's no internet, nothing. They cannot send it. So imagine the effect it has economically. So I just want to add to that point. Go ahead.
No, so I'll come back to Atnafu, then we'll come back to you, Yasin. So you mentioned Tigray, and we did see the war that 2 years it took. A lot of destruction, a lot of civilians were killed, a lot of women and children. And you mentioned that they are still lacking food sources, and infrastructure that's been destroyed has not been built. After all, this is Africa. Resources are going to be limited. So my question is, what happened? The Amhara region provided arms, provided soldiers in the conflict with federal government and Tigray. What happened? They were together, the federal government and the Amhara region. It was a popular support in the Amhara region to help with the Tigray. Now there's a split. Is there a Cold War that's been brewing that now has gone berserk? Or has the politics changed? Because yesterday, from the outside looking in, we saw the Amhara and the federal government are together, and now we see a split. What happened?
This is another good question.
Well, Kai happened. Well, Kai, that I'm gonna say.
No, it's a valid question because the optics, yeah.
It's more than well, guys. During the PRDF time, most Amharas believe that the targeted silent genocide that has been conducted in Amhara during the last 27 years, not counting the time of Abiy, was conducted by TPLF-led government. So there is a perception and the reality that Amharas were labeled as Naftañas, and other extreme groups were brainwashed that everything evil that had happened during Haile Selassie, even before, was conducted by Amhara alone. Nobody is responsible, not Oromos, not Tigrayans, not other peoples. But whatever happened in Ethiopia is a collective action and responsibility by all ethnic groups that are under the flag of Ethiopia in the territory of Ethiopia. As to me, I served as in the military. I served in the NGOs and other departments. I have never experienced that one ethnic group dominates and was giving you a term to do whatever bad or good things happened. So Amharas believe that, and not only that, the motive, the war, before it started, there was a propaganda, deliberate propaganda that was conducted by the people. Okay, before there was a war, they knew that they're going to fight with them because they think that the PLF had a dominant military force and intelligence capability, because they have been in the throne for over 27 years. Also, they are not the only ones which they did. I believe that Amharas equally. Amharas worked under TPLF are not equal. At least they have to take their share of the blame, not only TPLF. That's what I believe, and that's how it should be.
Mm-hmm.
But the Abiy tried to focus to TPLF to break them down because they were challenging his authority. They wanted the election to be on time. They don't want to suspend the election. They said no, and they made their own election against his will. Okay, and they were challenging many things. So he figured out first he has to hit them back. He has to break them down. But me and Yasin and others who have been following Ethiopian politics knew that after he did to TPLF and Tigray, will come after Amhara. I was saying it.
So your short answer is this is
it's a propaganda. And that propaganda, let me finish this. That propaganda was not only by Amharas. Oromo sent 10,000 soldiers to fight. Somalia, your region, sent about 5,000 people to fight against the TPLF because the propaganda was the biggest defense forces, which was residing in Tigray. About 80% of the total military force was attacked. They said that they attacked. They just go bulldozer them. They cut the throats of the people identifying by their ethnicity or something like that. The propaganda was so high, and people thought if our military is destroyed like this, we need to act. People rallied behind, not only Amharas, the Oromos, Somalis,
very good.
Everybody to fight against. But this time, I'm telling you, this time when the government starts to fight with Amhara is different. They don't have any cause. The only cause they are trying to say is law and order. No military. No military. Oromo or Afar or Somali will go is willing to die fighting Amharas. Why? There's no cause. There's no cause. Amhara didn't do anything except demanding to respect its own lives, its own existence, to assert its own existence that has been infringed every time. So
so let me throw. We're going to come back to now. We're in the political solution phase, but I'm going to give Yasin the same question. We were on the outside. We understood and heard that the Amhara, as a population, even as a regional government, provided soldiers for the conflict with Tigray. And now it's a shock to many people that they have taken on that narrative, and now this narrative completely. So the first question is what happened? The same question, and also Atnafu threw in there that, and we know that you have access to the government in the Somali region as well. He said that the Somali region provided soldiers for the Tigray conflict. If this spills over or this becomes a 2-year conflict, do you think that the Somali region will provide soldiers for this conflict?
Okay,
so you have to answer, Yasin.
I will. I'm not going to speak on behalf of the Somali government, but I will.
No, you have access, so let us. But the first part of the question is what happened? They were together, and now they're not together. Is the narrative?
Okay. So I say Walqai happened. The reason I just say that is one of the dominant. I won't say propaganda, but I will say to motivate people to come to fight is to take their land back. That is the way the farmers been engaged. But having said that, I went to Tnafa and I went to the Amhara region. We went to Kompalsha. We went to Dese. We went to Bahardar. We seen some of the reminiscence of the previous war. We went to it was the University of
which previous war? Which previous war?
Just 2 years ago, the Tigray.
Okay.
So some of the universities,
Wallo University.
When we seen it, it was just it's disheartening how everything was being looted. We went
So
to
those that don't know where Walla University is, where is it located?
it's
What?
located in
Amhara region, Wollo province, or was South Wollo zone. It is in
it's
Amhara.
in
Okay.
Desert. Well, university located in Desert city. So and is the border of convergence border line between the Tigray and Amhara region. So in any
Okay.
case, the destruction that I seen in my own eyes, I couldn't believe it, and you can still see it. When we went to Bahardar, the airport was even still under construction
Maintained.
because the artillery from the
The
war just hit
missile,
them.
missile. It was a
Missile,
missile
yeah,
attack.
yeah,
It's a
missile.
long range
So
missile.
anyway,
Mhm.
so what I'm saying is, the Amhara region already went through major internal displacement for their people, and I not imagine. I'm not going to imagine. I know this will happen again. Displacement of people moving from one area to another where there's war, and this will be concerned. So what happened? What happened was, number one, when the government said that the Fanos need to be disarmed, without the war, before even the war, the negotiation between the Tigray and the government happened. Number two, the negotiation that was happening in the Africa, in South Africa, the Amhara people who were fighting, especially the Fanos and others who believed that they were stakeholders, were not even included for the conversation and the discussion. And number three, when they say that the disarmament must happen as soon as possible, they did not like that. So there's too many other factors. What I will say is, it shows a lot of lack of political maturity from the government side, who I have a lot of respect, but who seems like they were rushing and they were making conclusions on their own. That's one of the reasons that we are here, and
Okay.
I'm going to leave it there because I want to
Okay. So
leave the.
let's get into the political. Let's get into the political question and the solution. Then, so before we do that, are you both gentlemen saying that let me rephrase this. As a government in power, doesn't the government have the right and the authority to say that we want militia to be disarmed? So that's the first question. And secondly, are you saying that, if you guys can both clarify your both perspectives, we'll do Atnaf within Yassin, that the blame lies completely with the government, or does Fano have some responsibility here?
And Guled, I want to add, you asked me about the Somali region and will they be involved in this war?
Sure, sure. Yes, yes, yes.
So,
Possibly
actually,
intentionally.
yeah, to be blunt, the BB is a one party. The Somali Regional Party is part of PP, and whatever political position is what they will follow, the instruction of the party.
No, no, I
And
was willing to move from that, but now that you picked it up, Yassine, question for you is the narrative that the Somali regional government provided soldiers, and we can debate the numbers, to the Tigray conflict. Do you agree with that narrative as being, since you're saying they're part of PP, do you agree with that narrative that they provide soldiers?
oh yeah, that's for sure. They provide soldiers, and we
Okay.
know who fought there and who did not. Number wise, it's not as high as Atnafu said it, but they did provide
But
it.
then the narrative, you agree with the narrative, so that should this thing continue, then you're saying there's a highly likelihood that the Somali region will send troops again. Is that what you're saying?
If they the final are their goal becomes to basically take over the country, take over the
Right.
Addis Ababa and and come to Addis Ababa. Absolutely, everybody will be every ethnic group in Ethiopia will be participating. If the war is
Okay. So
contained,
yeah,
if the
yeah,
war is contained
yeah.
in Amhara region, What happened, the good example is Oromia. The Oromia, there's a war that's happening, and Ola took a lot of cities. If we take in the example of the Oromia, the war, no other region is participating in the fight against Oromia, and I don't see any other region participating in the war in Amhara as long as it's containing the Amhara region. But if Bahadar falls, that's another thing that we need to revisit. But other than that,
okay, so let me go back to that question. Let's go into the question that we have prepared, because time is really moving on us. My goodness. So it's not. Let me just go back to that question. Doesn't the government have the right and the authority to demand that all militia, extra-governmental armed groups lay down their arms? That's the first part of that question. And secondly, are you placing the blame primarily on the government side, or the Spano / Popular Front have some blame, and who gets to more? So if you can combine those two together, and then we'll get into the solutions and political dialogue and so on.
Well, yeah, thank you. Before I go that, I would like to throw my perspective, what my brother Yasin said about should regional administrations send troops to fight alongside with the ruling party. I think the message is wrong, what my brother said, because I don't see any region has to participate in the internal conflicts. This is not something that Ethiopia is not invaded by foreign actors. If Ethiopia is invaded by Sudan, Somalia, or Djibouti, or somebody else, and your territorial integrity and sovereignty is under stake, the government and House of Representatives may declare state of emergency and say the people to rally behind the government. But this is an internal conflict. If one region, that was wrong when regions send militias and army to Tigray, and it should be wrong even to think to say to Amhara and other regions. This is going to propagate a civil war. Number one, it's going to be create a permanent dark dent between the relations of the people in the area. But the government wants to do that because they can only survive by divide and rule. One group will be fearing the other and will be suspicious. So, but we as a civic society leaders need to warn regional governments and others not to get involved in this type of conflict, not at all, because the fate of Ethiopia is going to be determined at the end of the day by its own citizens, by all stakeholders. I said it before, I will say it again. But this government is making the Ethiopian people fool, because what they are doing is they prioritize their power bases and hit one rather than people go to the second one.
Sure. So let me ask, let me refine.
Breaking down, which is very difficult.
So you're saying then we'll get back to
Yasin. Continue to Somalia. It's going to continue to Afar. It's going to continue to everybody. So I think it's not a clear message. What Brother Yasin said, I don't expect that to be. That it's
so. Let me clarify my point, Nafu, before you start. What I'm saying is what to expect, what the government will do. And based on
let's leave it for them. Let's leave it for the government's function. Let's leave it. But we want to speak it.
No, but from my perspective, if you're asking me, my perspective is two different things. But the perspective of what will they do, this is what they basically, we have to look at the historic background of what happened previously and how they're going to do it. So that is, having said that, my perspective is clear. This war should stop right now. There should be a dialogue that should be on the table, because I don't want this war to continue one more day. That is my clear understanding, my clear conscience, what I want it to happen. But if you're asking me what will happen? Exactly. All you need to do is just read their previous book, and you can see it exactly
Yeah.
what they did. So that's where I was going with. But in terms of
Let,
in
let's take
terms of
advantage of the time. Let's
okay,
take advantage of the time. I think you both answered that question very well and very clearly on what you thought of. So we haven't touched it. Who is to blame? So we'll come back to that, but maybe you can add it to the question that I'm asking. Both of you referenced that the solution has to be dialogue. You both referenced that the conflict with Tigray, the ending result was dialogue, even though they went to South Africa, even though many people were killed, but the end result was dialogue. So, how does a dialogue begin? Who calls for the dialogue? What are the terms for the dialogue that you could imagine? But in there, if you can place responsibility for the conflict that's happening today.
yeah. Uh, let,
Atnafu, oh, great, Yasin, then Atnafu.
I'll take this one because for I okay, I'm gonna put my hat in terms of peace negotiator. I sat with the across from the Ethiopian government while I was working with the owner left for the negotiation, and I seen the peace negotiation that took place right now with the TBLF and the Ethiopian government. Neither one of them is being implemented the way it's supposed to be. And now, if there is a negotiation even in the Amhara region, I'm going to say that I will have a serious doubt that peace agreement is going to be implemented. So if are talking about the status code, sure, let's do the status code and have a peace negotiation and then and then move on. Because I remember one of the Tigray individual that we have interviewed last time, the two of us, the three of us. I spoke to him 2 weeks ago, and I want to talk. I want to invite him on the show, and we talked more than an hour over the phone. And he said that we were planning to talk to him about the constitution at NAF, if you remember, when we were
Yeah.
trying to say that we want to get the TBLF perspective. And he said that I cannot even talk about anything right now. He said that because everybody in all my people are suffering, and you want to talk about the constitution of Ethiopia. Even though the war has ended, nothing is being implemented other than change of government. So I, honest to God, sitting from this side, have a serious concern. Where will Ethiopia go, even if this war one group wins or the other? By the way, let's be clear: guerrilla fighting will never end because we know on the left how long they would be fighting with Ethiopia, and the government could not end until there was a peace agreement, which is not being implemented until today. So one side has to swallow, but still, we have to find a better way of solving this problem rather than saying that there's a peace agreement and then
Okay, very good.
after that. That's
Yeah,
my last.
Mr. Atnafu, if, again, what we're discussing now is the opening first step of trying to find a solution. Again, you heard the question. You both referenced that the dialogue must happen. So having that as a background, that the dialogue must happen, what are the steps that need to be taken? Why is it important? And certainly going back to where is the blame? Shouldn't the government have the authority and the right to demand that all militia put down their arms vis-a-vis people picking arms for their rights? So if you can discuss that as well while going into how the dialogue for negotiation should begin. And what are the triggering points? Does the conflict have to become so bad and so bloody that negotiations become a necessity, or can that be averted beforehand? So if you can lump all that together with your experience.
Well, you raised a lot of points. Well, in terms of whom to blame, it's crystal clear the blame is the inability of the ruling party and the government, period. I don't blame the Fano or the Popular Force of Amhara. Why? Because they're trying to fight for their inalienable rights to exist and protect its own people. Let me give you one example that I told you already. I informed you that most of the major cities are now controlled by the Amhara Popular Forces. When they are controlling, they safeguard banks, even government banks. Can you imagine? Institutions, they don't loot. They give power for the people, the elders elect their own representatives temporarily and rule themselves. That's what they're doing, the function of the government. But the government couldn't give this function. It failed to provide safety and security of its citizens. The Amhara people cried out, we are marginalized. We couldn't travel to our capital city even to get medical treatment. We were profiled, we were killed, we were sieged. Stop it. They have been crying for many years now. Now, the Fanos and the Popular Forces are trying to safeguard its community. And it's a human rights issue. And it's self-defense. They're not trying to overthrow the government because they seek power. That's not the issue. It's a matter of living, existing. So I don't blame them. And I think it's long overdue. Amhara were so patient for so long. And so many people died because we couldn't act. Now, the people said, enough is enough. That's what's happening. So you don't blame these people for nothing. You blame the government.
What are the first 2-3 steps that must be taken to avert a complete disaster?
The government's authority to disarm people. The government, in the first place, they need to have a probable cause to disarm people. What happened? Did these people loot people? They create havoc to the communities? The communities support them. They try to protect their communities, which were being invaded by neighboring communities, which the government...
Which community is invading? Who's invading the Amhara community?
People from the Oromia, where I told you they burned Ataya city 10 times. I was involved in the fundraising to rebuild that city. Rebuilding, again, burning it down. It's crystal clear.
Can I ask a question? I just want to connect dots. So is this federal government an Oromo government in the sense that it is turning a blind eye to this soft invasion that you're saying, and it's trying to subdue the Amhara? Or is this another Ethiopian government, the last 2 or 3 that we've seen maybe, of just simply wanting to control? I mean, is this a ethnic-based government that is allowing this this Cold War that I joked about earlier to develop into this?
Yes, there is no doubt about it. When I say that, I'm not saying that they're fighting for the true cause of the Oromo people. No, they are not. They're fighting against the Oromo people at the same time. They're killing their own people at the same time. They kill the Bagaras of the Oromo, which when they feel that, they threaten their power. But I think these people, I'm not blaming Ola or anybody, me and Yasin and yourself. We invited the spokesperson of the Ola here at the Dab TV and asking, why are you killing the civilians? Based on their ethnicity, because they are Amhara. But what he said was, remember Yasin, what he said was, this is not us. It's the Oromo PP that's doing it for political gain. And the security chief of the Oromia regime himself, General Kamal, said that it is the ruling party of the PP who is doing it, not the factions of the Oromia, other Oromia. That's why I don't blame ONLF or OLF or other groups, but it's the government anyway, either to protect it or to make it itself. So yes, there is a political thing. See Addis Ababa, what's going on in the what they call the sugar surrounding Addis Ababa. They created cities encircled Addis Ababa. They said sugar. They made it under Oromia region. What did they do? As soon as they did that, what did they do? They displaced 500,000 people. Most of them are Amharas, not only Amharas. Could be Gamos, Gurages, but non-Oromos. But the majority were Amharas, and they were ethnically cleansing that area from non-Oromos. And yes, it is ethnically based government.
Okay, so let me ask a question on that. In terms of structural, when you set up dialogue, you need two parties at least, or two set parties. We know that the Fano is essentially a loose network, a loose militia. Is no centralized sort of supremacy leader. So in terms of you've painted the picture that there is an ethnic dynamic to this. So I'll lay that down. But in terms of having a negotiation between two parties, and the structure of Fano is still a very loose structure, and you are both saying that there must be a negotiation. Who, if I am the federal government, and fine, I accept negotiation, who am I negotiating with? I cannot negotiate with 30 plus million Amharas, right? I have to negotiate with someone. Who is the federal government to negotiate with? There is no structure. So we'll go with Nafuddin Yassin. If there is no structure, how do you go back and coalesce this popular movement that is uprising? So that's because, again, there's an ethnic dynamic, as you mentioned.
Well, when I say negotiation, I don't mean negotiation between Fano and the federal government. What I mean is overall political dialogue among all stakeholders of every stakeholder, including people who are armed and struggling for whatever cause they may have, the civic society, the opposition political parties, and others. I mean that. It's not feasible that we don't trust now either the federal government or the regional government. They are in a position to resolve these issues through dialogue. They are not, because they were given a chance to do it. There was a meeting in Amhara Regional State, House of Representatives. Even some of the PP members outspoken to resolve it through dialogue. They didn't want to do it because they have been receiving instructions from their boss from Addis Ababa. So that time has already passed. Now, if you're asking me about the solution, the first thing that they need to do is the defense forces has to leave Amhara region, Amhara region at all. And people can take care of themselves in terms of military. The people didn't demand their safety and security will be protected by the defense forces. They lost credibility. They lost trust. The people are not trusting now the defense forces. Even the Amhara militias, they don't trust them. So they have their own means of protecting their own security. This has been, traditionally being able. There was governments, different regions were Dargo, even when I listen last year goes, the people always protect themselves. They don't need anybody to protect them. So they are in a position to be able to protect themselves. That's number one. They need to leave the Amhara region. Then they need to call the national dialogue, not dialogue between Fano and one group with the other. No. But if Fano, there is no structure or something like that, there are a lot of Amhara organizations, civic organizations in abroad, there in Ethiopia, who are doing underneath all these organizational efforts. There are people who can negotiate. We have a lot of people, scholars and others, who can negotiate or protect
on behalf,
Amhara. At the same time,
very good.
Various groups or stakeholders in the region. That's what I mean. So
okay. So let me ask Yassine the same question. We're out of time, and then both of you will do your concluding remarks. Yassine, in terms of negotiation, and the same question, you've worked on peace negotiations. The question was, how do you get Fano or this popular movement or this demand by the Amhara to say that we want our rights? Mr. Atnafu answered in the sense that, well, you need to do a broader dialogue, of a nationwide dialogue. You mentioned earlier that it failed to come to fruition. So taking on the same question and exactly what Mr. Atnafu said, what is the road to dialogue, to peace here?
I want to answer a lot of stuff that Atnafu said, but I'm going to leave it. But the one thing that I'm going to say is this. This time, the Somalis need to take the lead, period. We tried the Amhara way. We tried the
What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? Don't be facetious. What do you mean?
No. I'm going to be specific. And it's a joke, but it's serious. Because the grievance between the Amharas and the Oromos is so deep that sometimes it blinds them because of the solution, because the egos goes in front of them. If Ethiopia is going to be a country that everybody owns it, no one should be on the periphery. We have to come to the center and find a solution that is viable or way out. The reason I just say the Somalis is, even though nowadays the Amharas don't like Adam Farah, I'm not talking about Adam Farah, and I'm not talking about Mustafa or others. I'm talking about Somali political oppositionists, as well as the political groups, and as well as we need a fresh start, period. That's all I'm telling you. And then we have, as Atnafu said, there's a large Amhara elites who's experts, who's been doing this kind of things before. And then you have a large Oromo elites, and I've seen both sides, and I sometimes I know there's a bright history of Ethiopia in the past. I know there's a lot of victims in the past, but we want to is that, okay, how can we look the future and look with fresh eyes? And I think at now, this time, if we're talking about ethnicity, the Somalis should be the one who's doing it.
Well,
okay. So let me ask a concluding remark, because we're out of time. Yeah. The reason that we're here today is, in essence, you can add your points to your final comment.
Yeah,
is in essence the Fano militia or popular movement has refused to heed the orders of the federal government, which is to say to lay down your arms. Within that, there are political tension points that have been boiling over. So in your concluding remarks for today, because it looks like we're at the beginning of a very rough period, if Fano is defeated today, do you think that in a war setting, if Fano is defeated, do you think that this conflict will end? Do you think that since you have painted it in sort of both in a way, sort of in a ethnic situation, will the country's identity now become an Oromo country or Oromo majority political identity? What is the result? Because where we are today, I don't want to paint a picture too far away. If in the next few months, weeks, Fano is defeated, does that forever put back the Amhara concept of Ethiopia? Does it become a new Ethiopia? So if you can add those points together and really take it from where we are today and look at it historically, is the change that's going to come, regardless of this, going to be so dramatic that Ethiopia will be a completely different country. We'll do Atnaf within Yasin, and I think after that we should be done. We've really went over our time, but please, Atnaf, go ahead.
Yes, thank you again. Well, if Fano or the Popular Front is defeated today in Amhara region, will it end the conflict? That's a good question. It's not going to end the conflict. It will probably lead to the most gruesome genocidal conflict and war that will be prolonged for a long period of time, and that will tear apart the country as a whole. This is as dangerous as it is, because when you see the movement, I have stated repeatedly, this is not something that a small group of people raise arms and try to go and fight the government. That's not. It's a popular uprising. It's a popular and well accepted and well recognized and the public, including the farmers, are engaged in this uprising. And you cannot win this war. You can win the war, the battle, yet you cannot win the war. The battle means, like, we know, we understand, I have a military background, that the military or the central government or the federal government possess a lot of weapons, including drones, airplanes, helicopters, and heavy armament. They may destroy or they may kill hundreds of or millions of people, but they're not going to win the war. They may win the battle by doing that, but that will aggravate the situation, both economically and human factors. And there are other ethnic groups outside Amhara now raising uprising. If you go to Gamo, they saying that I'm Fano. Can you imagine that? There was a protest yesterday in Gamo area and southern regions, and opposing and supporting the federal government and supporting Fano movement. Can you imagine that will happen in southern region? And if you have a just cause, your aim, your strategy is not to marginalize other people or to go the interest of other people, but to protect your own livelihood. I'm telling you, even the defense forces themselves are defecting like here. They are defecting and joining. Non-Amharas from the defense forces are joining the popular struggle and fighting against the government these days. They cannot win this battle, this war. They may be heavy-handed and killing millions of people. They may squash it for the time being, but they're not going to win the war. As far as I'm concerned, from the military analysis and everything as I see, this war is not going to be won by the government. They may destroy the country, they may tear up the country, but that's why we need to be one. We need to voice, it's not only Amhara cause. If Ethiopia is dismantled, I think that no one is going to benefit, including the Oromos, which under their name, this regime is trying to play down, to play the game. But I don't believe this is the interest of the Oromos.
The same question. What happens if Fano or the popular movement is defeated militarily? Does that put the country in complete chaos? Does it? Do others join in? Where does it lead? Because it appears that this is following a true and tested Africa model, which is the conflict has to get completely bloody before a dialogue happens. So what do you see is happening in the near future? If does the country dissolve? Does it become balkanized? Do other regions, building on Atnafu's response, do other regions say, well, heck, we're going to stand on our own as well? What do you see happening moving forward? And we will close the program soon.
Okay, if we're taking the model of winner or loser, no matter what, the loser of this war is the government, no matter what. Because government is fighting
politically.
The government is fighting for this war within. What kind of government fights their own people? That
Yeah.
that question is there. So no matter what, if we just forget about the semantics and be genuine and concerned about this, what's happening in the Ethiopia right now, the blame is on the government. No sugarcoating. And every life that's lost in the Amhara region, they will be accountable for it, whoever is in power. Based on that, what I wanted is to focus is two things. Can we have peace in the near future as soon as possible? If so, if we are talking about peace and reconciliation, it has a process. And that process, how are we going to have that process is what we need to talk about. Who should be part of it? But the imminent thing that we need to do right now, we need to stop the war. Because we know at the end of the day, even if the government wins the war, the battle will continue. And lives will be lost. So having said that, I'm going to appeal both the government of Ethiopia and the Fano and Amhara Amhara Popular Front. They need to stop the bloodshed, period, and find a different way of solving this problem. And to the international community, they need to speak up, because this right now, what's about to happen is a train wreck, and it have a serious spillover. So before I said something that I regret, that's where I'm going to stop.
I think we've so today we've been
One point.
essentially. Yeah, go ahead. Yes,
before we
yes,
close
please.
Well, I think, yes, Yassin is right when he says that the blame lies on the government, no matter who wins. Yes, because they are in the government side, in the government seat. Had they governed, had they led the country, wouldn't have been a war in the first place. Wouldn't have a conflict in the first place. Let me read two Martin Luther King quotations, which me and Yassin admires most, and we spend a lot of time here in Atlanta fighting for justice and human rights and civil rights with them. Martin Luther King once said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." If there is injustice in Amhara region, if there is injustice in Tigray, in Oromia or Somalia or anywhere, it's a threat to all of us, and we need to voice. If we are really seeking a true peace, all people who are pro-justice need to voice and pressure the government to come to the table. The government is not going to do it willingly. We cannot wish. We need to force them for peace. And the other one is when we say that the government is playing law and order to crush its own. Again, on this, Martin Luther King once said, "Law and order exist for the purpose of establishing justice." For the purpose of establishing justice. And when they fail in this purpose, they become dangerously structured dams that block the flows of social progress. You know, there is nothing, the law and order we discussed thoroughly in detail was absolutely violated by the government itself. They don't go by constitution. Human rights, the arrests, arbitrary arrests, restricting people from travel from one place to the other, which is granted in this constitution, is violated by
Mhm.
SICAV. So you cannot tell me that the government, if you are somebody who is a government side, says that this is for law and order. There's no law and order because you violated it already. So people
Yeah.
will go to protect themselves and they put everything in their own hands if you cannot do
Right.
the function of what this constitution is telling to do. So with this, I conclude my remarks. I enjoyed your conversation. I hope we'll continue
No, we
to.
will. We will have to. We will have to continue. I think there are a lot of other questions that we have not had time for, and I want to thank the audience for posting messages and questions and sending me messages and questions. We did not get to all of them. We will do our best to try it again. I think and if I can put in. I've been asking you guys questions, so if I can try to put in my perspective a bit. We saw how far the government is willing to go in terms of this with the Tigray. We saw in terms of how far the government is willing to use force. At NAFU, you and I are military men, so the concept that any militia will defeat a standing military, particularly in the 21st century, head on, is very, very difficult. But a population uprising can certainly more than even the score on that. We so the concern that everybody has is for women and children within the Somali region. We've seen the concept when conflict reaches women and children, how devastating that can be. We saw what happened in the Tigray region, how devastating that was. So I think the biggest issue is going to be to concern about women and children, non-combatants, then infrastructure, then resources. So I think usually in that sense is where the damage in terms of long-lasting impact. I thank my two experts. We really did not have the time for the politics. I think we may have to do a second one discussing what role the questions that I had, what role the federal parliament has in this. The government announced a 6-month state of emergency. When those 6 months are up, the political discussion has to be, can the government unilaterally extend that, or do they need to come back to the parliament to extend that? What avenues and safe avenues are going to be available for civilians? And certainly the fear of the regional ethnic spillover. Mr. Atnafu mentioned that there is an element of Oromization, if you will, that's going on, and what that pushback is. So I think we've covered a lot of ground. We've certainly been on a very long time. Appreciate it, gentlemen. Maybe we can do this again next Monday when we have more information and we can discuss the political part of this conflict. So that's my lasting point. Thank you all for joining us, and hope to see you next time. Take care.
Thank you very much, Brother Guled. Appreciate it, Yasin.